Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm answering your questions about homeschool, whether you are a new homeschooler or you are simply homeschooling for this upcoming school year. I've received a lot of questions over the last few days, so I thought I would open up a Q&A. So if you are interested, then stay tuned. So during my back to homeschool week, I got a lot of questions from new up-and-coming homeschoolers, and there's two reasons why people are homeschooling right now, and so a lot of these questions are going to have two answers. Answers for those of you who are, homeschooling and wanting to do it for the long haul, and those of you who have made a switch to homeschooling this upcoming year and may or may not continue. So just keep in mind that I'm going to have a couple of different answers depending on kind of the angle that it was asked from. So I'm going to go through some of these Instagram messages and just pick and choose the ones that I got a lot of. And there will be some that I missed. If you have any other questions, you can leave those in the comments down below. And just keep in mind, this is just coming from my perspective. I'm not an authority to speak on homeschooling. I can only share my experience with you guys and what advice I may think would be helpful in this situation. So the first question here is, in your state, do you have to report progress or testing? If so, how do you do record keeping? So the answer to that is I live in the state of Florida, and I actually have a whole homeschooling 101 or portfolio 101 video that I'll link up here, and that will answer all the questions about how I do record keeping in our homeschool. I've done it the same way since the beginning. For those of you who live in states that require you to record hours and number of days and things like that. One, there's a website, I'll link it down below, that gives you state-by-state requirements. And two, you can always look into the option of doing an umbrella school if that completely overwhelms you and you don't want to be solely responsible for that. So those are two resources to look into. Thoughts on complete curriculum from one company versus piecing things together. I love piecing things together. I do end up kind of getting a lot from one company, but it's a company that I pick and choose from. So the Simply Charlotte Mason company is where I get a lot of stuff from. But we use math from a different company, science from a different company. Some subjects we don't even use curriculum. We just kind of freely flow through it on our own. So that's where my heart is to piece things together based on our interests and my kids' interests and just kind of like my confidence in homeschooling them at this point. However, I know a million reasons why getting it from one company or getting a boxed curriculum would be beneficial, and one of those reasons would be for anyone who's just wanting to homeschool for 1 year. Just getting everything open and go from one curriculum could be, or one company would be really, really beneficial in that situation, I believe. How do you muddle through the masses of curriculum to decide on what to try first? Oh, I have to think back to when we first started. My only advice for that would be just to figure out the reading, writing, and arithmetic, get that kind of figured out, and then from there add on the beautiful things and the interests that you guys have. But for that, I just read a lot of stuff online. I did a lot of flip throughs online, like, just going on different YouTube channels or going on different websites where you're going to make a purchase where you can see inside the curriculum. And just kind of made our decisions based on that. Obviously this year there are like no homeschooling conventions, so you can't actually get your hands on curriculum, but it's just a lot of trial and error. I really don't want to send my son to school, but I work from 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. How could I work that out? So that would depend on if you have childcare from 6:30 to 1, obviously, and depending on how old your son is. I shouldn't say how old he was. But I have a lot of friends who are working homeschooling parents, and I have a friend who's a working homeschooling single mom, and she does an amazing job. It's just a matter of setting up some independent work to be done while her work needs to be done, and then really, really being intentional and making the most of the time that they do have together. Keep in mind, with homeschooling, you can school year round. You don't have to school Monday through Friday. You don't have to school from homeschool from 8 to 3. So just make it work for your family, the best way that it can, given your circumstances, if it's something that you really want to do. What's the difference between homeschooling and virtual learning through the school? Virtual learning through the school is the authority then. You have assignments that need to be completed, and you are facilitating that. And the school is giving those assignments, those due dates, and picking that curriculum and all that. Homeschooling, you're the authority. You choose what curriculum you want to use. You choose when you're going to be doing school. And so I think a lot of homeschoolers, myself included, were a little concerned for families who were doing virtual learning and thinking that's what homeschooling felt like. Maybe families who were considering homeschool, but then thought, oh, this virtual learning was a disaster. We didn't do well at all. We can never homeschool. Because when somebody else is making the rules and somebody else is calling the shots and making those decisions for you, when that control is not in your hands, it's like having an employer. Of course, I think most of us would prefer to own our own business and make our own rules versus being under an employer. It's the same thing with homeschooling. You know, if you're doing the virtual learning, you're being told essentially what to do, and you have to follow that guideline. When you're homeschooling, you call the shots, and for those of you who are interested in doing that, the virtual learning just doesn't give you a good taste of what that would look like in your family. You know, if you have fidgety kids, you don't want to be on the computer all day long. We're never on the computer for school besides for my kids' math. And I can't imagine them being on the computer for hours at a time, let alone having 4 kids on a computer all day long. It's not the same thing whatsoever. We do a lot of family subjects sitting around the table together, where we go at their pace, we stop when they're overwhelmed, we pick it up at another point, we go outside a lot. It's just completely different. My son is going into 3rd grade. Where would I even start? Books, websites, etc. Like I said earlier, nail down those 3, the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. For 3rd grade, that's all that, you know, you should really even be choosy about. The rest of the stuff, just let it come to you. Like if he is outside and he's really interested in bugs, and you guys can check out some bug books from the library, and you can make like some sciencey fun around bugs, there's your science. Like you know, just kind of nail down those first 3 things, especially if it's your very first year. What I always tell people who are interested in homeschooling is to give it 2 years. The first year, because I hear a lot like, we're just gonna try it out this year. And the first year is bumpy. It's kind of like the first year of marriage, or at least mine, it was really bumpy. And I was like, wow, this is not what I expected. It's the same for homeschooling, essentially. The first year, you're gonna find out what it isn't. You know, it's not creating a classroom. It's not sharpening pencils and ringing a bell and starting it on the dot. And it's not like lunch breaks and recess. It's not that way, but you kind of have to figure that out on your own, because a million people can tell you that, but you're gonna still have that desire to create a classroom, right? So the first year, you're finding out what it's not. You're undoing some things that you've learned through being a part of the school system. The second year is where you kind of get your footing and decide, okay, we've run our course with all this. I know what I don't want it to be. Now I know what I want it to be. And you kind of start creating your own, you know, culture of education in your home. So my advice would be to give it 2 years, kind of just nail down the basics, and then from that point on, just make it your own. But blogs, websites, I mean, if you have friends who homeschool, look at their stuff. That would be my where to start. How much does it cost per year for supplies, books, trips, etc.? How do you afford homeschooling? Again, it can be free through the library and free educational resources. There's also free online programs, or it can be really, really expensive unit studies, craft supplies, field trips, you know, so that is all, it's just a matter of what your budget is. I don't even know where to start as far as what supplies cost us through the course of the year, because it kind of rolls into our regular budget. So I don't know. I don't have an exact answer for that. How to schedule or teach multiple grades, kindergarten, preschool, and a newborn. Well, kindergarten and preschool are actually a lot closer than you would think as far as multiple grades, because preschool and a kindergartner one day are gonna be a 1st and a 3rd grader, or a 3rd and a 5th grader. So it actually can be done really well, especially at those ages, when you are looking at family subjects and subjects that can be done together. If you're wanting to teach them together, I would suggest, I'm an advocate for the Charlotte Mason method, because it can be done preschool through high school all together, just with different expectations. But find subjects that, for example, I like apology of science. You read the same textbook, and then you can expect different things from the different ages. Although with preschool and kindergarten, that's really young. So I would say 5 in a row. That's another great one, where you read the same storybook, and then you can just do some activities together with a different expectation of your kindergartner and your preschooler, or one day your 4th grader and your 2nd grader. How to best manage several ages and grades. That's the same question. Let's see. How many subjects do you try to address each day of homeschool? We have a morning basket, and again, this isn't going to be a great video if you're just homeschooling for 1 year, because you're going to be like, Shakespeare, poet, composer, what? But if having a family time together is something that's really interesting to you, I'm going to link a video up here for our morning basket for this year. We rotate through the morning basket for about an hour. We get to what we get to. We put it down after the hour and we get to the rest another day. I do have days, 2 days a week that we do science, and they do math every day. And then the other 2 days a week we'll do a little history. So we just kind of rotate around, but we're really doing school. We're done by noon every day. So kind of just whatever fits into that time. Favorite resources for pre-K and kindergarten. This is our first year. My favorite resource for that age is 5 in a Row, hands down. Do you have a YouTube video about homeschooling other kids with a toddler around? Guys, it's just messy. It's not easy with a toddler. Toddlers are worse than newborns when it comes to homeschool because they're getting into everything. They want to be a part of it, but they don't want to be a part of it. And food, naps, you know, homeschool during snack time, homeschool during nap time. Include them in what they can be included in. You'll be surprised with what a crayon and a piece of paper will do for them if they think they're doing school with you. Other than that, just be flexible. The season will pass. It feels like you're in it forever, but a year from now, they're gonna be much more interested in doing Play-Doh and doing pretend play. They're not just gonna be a little wrecking ball toddler, so it will go by quickly, and you will be like me looking at pictures going, why did I not appreciate that season? And it's good for your older kids too, to learn some flexibility and to show some grace where it's needed. Next question. Okay, this question is, they named the state they live in, and they said, our state requires 180 days and 1,000 hours of instruction and all the subjects to be taught. I'm still watching videos, so I apologize if you've already covered this, but how do you record your efforts to fulfill that obligation? Computer or binder, etc. I don't have to have all that information. Like I said, I have that portfolio video for the state of Florida, but if you are feeling overwhelmed by that concept, then possibly join an umbrella school for your first couple of years until you get a hang of it. If that concept of recording every single detail is super overwhelming. I also believe that, I think it was Wild and Free had a great podcast on record keeping when you're like unschooling or doing more nature-based education. So if I can find that, I will link that down below as well. And where they had like a great way to keep record by just recording 1 day a month, kind of writing everything down that they did that day. But again, that was a long time ago, so I might not be able to find it. But look at umbrella schools. YouTube, again, it's just a great resource. I might be biased, but I learn a lot from watching other moms share their experiences. You're not gonna get better insight than the firsthand experience of a mom who lives in that state. So that's a great place to start. Or if you have local homeschooling groups or an like HSLDA or any kind of website resource for your area, look into that. Let's see, any other questions? How do you supplement your curriculum? Oh, my biggest question is, what educational apps do you use to supplement your curriculum? How do you keep an active kid focused? Those two questions are actually they actually are kind of polar opposites in my world. My active kids, to keep them focused, we don't do technology. We do a lot of outdoor play and just keeping them engaged but moving around. So we have our warm-up bin where I have logic toys, and when they're getting kind of tired of busy work, they'll move on to our warm-up bin and they're playing a logic toy. They can do math on paper, or they can be playing with a math manipulative, and in my mind, those are both math. And so you're gonna get 30 minutes out of them that way, than maybe 15 in total if you're just trying to sit them down and keep them sitting still. But as far as educational apps, those are a reward that we give them. Rarely, but these ones in particular, I wouldn't have a problem with being a little more liberal with their usage of it. It's just not something that my kids are consistently used to doing, so we don't necessarily bring it in more. But I love Osmo, and that's not an app. You have to purchase the the program, but I love Osmo and I love reading eggs. Both of those my kids have really enjoyed. Well, Osmo can really be a lot of things, but reading eggs is for reading, and that is for kids ages 2 or 3 all the way up to like 13. And all 4 of my kids really enjoy it. There's different levels, and there's also, they have one called Math Seeds, and there is a math program there as well. So those are that's my answer as far as educational apps. Other than that, that's pretty much all they use. So that's how I keep an active kid focused as well. Okay, how would you respond to your kids if they said they wanted to go to How would you respond to your kids if they said they wanted to go to a real school, but you still feel the Lord calling you to homeschool? My kids have no clue what public or private schools are like. You know, that is just like your convictions. If you feel like the Lord is calling you to homeschool, then that's your answer. The Lord is calling us to homeschool. And as a parent, and you know, when you have that parent-child relationship, you have that authority, and especially if you feel like God has that authority over your decision making, then that's the answer. I mean, it's not like a point blank like, well, God told us to, but I mean, discuss that. This is what the Lord has called us to. This is our family's lifestyle. Now, I don't know if it's just because our kids have been homeschooled from the beginning. They're all sort of born into our homeschool. Nobody's asked that yet, nor have they expressed much interest in it. All their friends are essentially that they see consistently are homeschooled because we meet for different, you know, homeschooling activities. But if you're confident in your decision, then that should provide a confident answer to your kids. But again, kids are kids. I mean, I pretty much wanted to switch schools all the time, but the answer was just no. So that was the answer. 2 questions. 1, for those of us trying it out this year but unsure we will stick with it in the future, how do we find out what our kids would learn at school to keep them on pace to return if we decide? And number 2, how do you help a child who fights doing any of the work? I have a 1st grader and he pushes back constantly with anything we try to do for school. Okay. Question number 1, that I think, personally, I think that would be a boxed curriculum answer for keeping your kids on grade level if you're planning to send them back. And that's just, I mean, that would probably be the least bumpy road for your kids. If you're pretty sure you're gonna put them back in school, just get an easy box curriculum, like not easy, but like open and go, you know, it's all right there, not a lot of planning involved. Get your schoolwork out of the way and then have the rest of your day to just enjoy this extra year's worth of time you've been given with them. Don't fret over all the details. Now, like I said, I'm an advocate for certain homeschooling methods, and I do believe in, you know, certain components of choosing from different curriculum companies. However, if it's a year that you have with your kids, get the academics out of the way and just enjoy the year with them. And then, what was the second question? I swiped over on accident. How do you help a child who fights doing any of the work? That is a toughie, because if you are planning to send them back, then you're gonna have to do some school style like assignments. Like you're gonna have to make deadlines. You're gonna have to give like that rewards system kind of thing to make it happen. If you have more than a year and you're not trying to necessarily keep them perfectly on grade level, then you have more wiggle room as far as how to deal with that. You know, there have been years where one of my kids will be struggling with a certain subject, and so we kind of give ourselves permission to put that down and try a different route. And because they kind of worked through whatever was giving them that anxiety, a lot of times the work fight, the schoolwork fight has to do with some maybe anxieties about that subject or insecurities they're having about that subject versus just not wanting to. So if you can put that subject aside and give them some confidence in your relationship, or help them build some confidence, say it's reading that they don't want to do, just read to them. They're listening, they're hearing the words, they're getting more familiar, getting more comfortable, and then maybe eventually they'll pick it back up and it'll be much more smooth. That has been our experience. Same with math for another one of my kids. They just had major math anxiety. They really didn't have a trust in me that I wasn't going to be reactive to their reactions. And so we both had to kind of put down math and just do math games for a little while. And then when we were able to pick it back up, it has run very smooth since then. But we wouldn't be given that opportunity if, you know, we only have from August to May to get this done. in that case, it's a different answer because you do just have to kind of keep them going and keep them on track. So definitely 2 answers there for that. Let's see. So my oldest will be able to attend in-person school this fall. He has special needs and requires a support team that I simply can't mimic. I'll be starting school with my 3 and 5-year-old this year. We're using Simply Charlotte Mason and Sunlight. As I start out, let's see. Oh, thank you. That was just a nice comment. Okay, how do you explain to your kids that they're not missing out on anything when they see other kids going to school and they're not? Again, that's just the answer of this is your family's culture and your family's lifestyle. Hopefully there's things about, you know, homeschooling and the things that your family values that maybe if they wouldn't get if they were in the opposite situation that they really enjoy. So it's always a good idea to remind them of some of the benefits that they're getting, but not in like a, well, this is better because you get to do this, this, and this, and when they're there, they're not doing this, this, and this, because you don't ever want to like make them afraid of that option either. And I made that mistake with my oldest of just like really wanting her to love homeschool. So, you know, you'd have to sit in a desk all day, and because what if, and then, you know, you don't want to create that anxiety. Like, what if you do have a year where you have to send them there for some reason that you aren't expecting? You want that to be a smooth transition and not be a fear-based place. Same, I think a lot of us are seeing this on the flip side right now, where we never say never, like we're never going to homeschool, and now this is the circumstances that, you know, the majority of the country has been placed in. So yeah, that answer would just be, of course you're missing out on things, just like other kids are missing out on these things. I mean, life is not going to be perfectly equally fair for everyone. So these are the benefits, and you know, these are the things we really enjoy, and we're enjoying these particular freedoms, and this is just our family's lifestyle. This is our family's culture. I have a question. Why do your kids go back to school? Isn't it still summer? Yes, it's still technically summer. We just homeschool year round, and that has worked best to give our family some flexibility. So those were the bulk of the questions. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any more questions, leave those in the comments down below. I hope that was a nice neutral answer. I'm trying to think if I said anything that I'm a little concerned with. No, I think I'm pretty confident in all of my answers. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Bye guys.